Sylvanus Olympio, one of the founding fathers of independent Togo, was a gifted leader, great speaker, and intellectual. He spoke fluently in three languages: English, German, and French. However, he was killed on January 13, 1963. On the night of January 12th, his house was attacked around 11 p.m., but it was only the next day around 7 a.m. that he was assassinated, becoming the first African president or leader to be killed. It should be noted that in the aftermath, about 20 African presidents or leaders were assassinated. Notable names include Haile Selassie, Patrick Sumbumba, and Thomas Sankara, and the list is quite long. This all happened as usual, with the extensive help of colonial powers. Regarding Sylvanus Olympio, there were testimonies, semblances of an investigation, confessions, but nothing was done. Between the attack that occurred at approximately 11 p.m. and the time of his assassination at around 7 a.m., a span of 8 hours had passed. During those 8 hours, the United States through its embassy and France through its embassy were well aware of what was happening, but nothing was done. Why was this man, ideal for governing Togo, assassinated? What impact did this have on Togo? We will find out in this video. Hello, I am Mr. Rez, and welcome to my YouTube channel. For those who are new, we discuss Afro culture and history on this channel. I cover everything that enhances and elevates our Black community on this channel. I produce podcasts and documentaries to demonstrate that young Afro individuals and the community are not just involved in degrading things. In short, if all this resonates with you, feel free to subscribe, comment, and share. That said, let's go back to where we started. Let's frame this properly. If you remember, before I took a break from my YouTube channel to rest a bit, I made a video about President Kwame Nkrumah and President Sekou Touré, the presidents of Ghana and Guinea, respectively. These countries share a trait. They became independent 2 years before most West African nations. Thus, we find ourselves in the logo during that period under British and French protection. I mentioned protectorate, but it was colonized, so to speak, by Britain and France. Before that, it was colonized by Germany. Why? You can understand simply. It's like a piece of cake. Germany came, took its share, then left, and Britain and France came and took the cake together. Therefore, in this context, the Ghana is getting ready for its independence a year later. And the area of Togo under British control notices this. Of course, the people under British control who share a border with Ghana see their neighbor gaining independence soon. They have to wait another 50 years. Complaints start to surface. The populations begin to demonstrate a little. Discontent rises, prompting Great Britain to organize a referendum. In the referendum, the Togolese populations will have to decide if they want to join Ghana, which means they would gain independence much sooner. They would join Ghana, or if they want to remain within the Togo region, in which case they will have to wait for independence that will come later. To emerge from this referendum, the majority will vote for joining Ghana. This will create a division among the Yu people in that region of the country. However, in this video I won't talk about the Yu people because I think that to cover this, a separate video is needed because of the topic's complexity and nuance. In any case, after the referendum, a good portion of the population will join Ghana. And on the side of Togo, which is under French protectorate or colonization, the populations also see that on the other side of the country, people are going toward independence and they feel a bit off. Thus, they begin to demonstrate as well. However, France will adopt a much sneakier and unhealthy approach by offering Togo the facade of being free. Let me explain. At that time, France's president was General de Gaulle. If you follow my channel, I've mentioned him in a previous video and you'll see. Thus, General de Gaulle had the great idea to set up the autonomous Togo, a big phase organized to make the Togolese believe they are independent. And to do this, he will place Nicolas Deniski at the head of the country, who is preferred over Sylvanus Olympio because Sylvanus Olympio is supposedly too close to England. But they failed to consider the CUT, the Committee for Togo's Unity, a nationalist party with Sylvanus Olympio at the helm. Their dedication towards the cause will be unwavering as they make every effort to ensure the successful accomplishment of Togo's independence, utilizing all possible means.
Ladies, gentlemen, the day we've longed for is here at last. Our country is indeed beautiful. If since the decision of France in World War I was successively protected by the Germans, the Franco-British condominium territory under the protection of France is recognized on this day, the 27th of April, 1960, his freedom over time.
SYLVANUS Olympio, the Togolese president, implements reforms swiftly, leaving a lasting impact. He conveys that the cooperation with France will change significantly, as he is not in favor of French interests, and he expresses this very clearly. Antenna policy wasn't perfect. However, I believe it is best to allow the Togolese to express their thoughts on SYLVANUS Olympio's antenna policy in their own comments. In any case, in 1961, SYLVANUS Olympio was the victim of an unsuccessful assassination attempt. In light of this situation, he concludes that Togo must have a single political party, specifically the CIT, and that power must be managed in a centralized way because he believes that the opposition party, led by Nicolas Gronewski, is behind all of this. Gronewski goes into exile, and Togo has a single party. It's important to remember that at that time, the single party was not just a fantasy. This was practiced in many newly independent countries, notably Ivory Coast with Houphouët-Boigny, Senegal with Senghor, and Gabon with Omar Bongo. You understand that it was, if you will, the tool that many new independent presidents used to ensure a certain level of security. Thus, with his tailored approach, SYLVANUS Olympio worries France less because he employs much less brutal methods, one might say. He will take actions leading to his assassination, at least in some people's view. A crucial act is managing the crisis with ex-soldiers, among other actions. Let me clarify. It should be noted that at that time, France was involved in many conflicts around the world. This is not new, and in these conflicts they needed soldiers. So France used many African soldiers, including Togolese. There were wars in Indochina, and there was war in Algeria. Once these wars ended, these soldiers returned to their home country. So there is a contingent of about 250 to 300 soldiers returning to Togo. These soldiers request to be reintegrated into the Togolese army. SYLVANUS Olympio clearly refuses because he believes that Togo has other priorities at the moment. He believes that Togo's financial stability is not yet secure. He thinks it is a small country with other priorities that needs a stable financial and economic situation. Thus, the priority is not to have a large army or one that needs funding. Therefore, he refuses. And very clearly, he does not want to have in his ranks people he believes have fought against others who merely sought their independence. He disagrees on economic and financial grounds, but he also disagrees on a vision level. Thus, he is opposed, strongly opposed to their integration into the military. Ultimately, of the 250 soldiers, only 60 are absorbed into the Togolese army. The others are left unemployed, leading to frustration. This will lead to the coup d'etat organized on January 12, 1963. His residence is attacked around 11 p.m., and he will be assassinated the next day, around 7 a.m. in front of the United States Embassy.
This is a concise announcement made in the early hours of Sunday morning, informing the 1,440,000 residents of the young Republic of Togo that a military coup had occurred overnight, and that the President of the Republic, SYLVANUS Olympio, had been assassinated.
What really took place on the night of January 12th to the 13th? To put it simply, a commander attacked President SYLVANUS Olympio's home on the night of January 12, 1963, around 11 p.m. When President SYLVANUS Olympio heard, he quickly got dressed. He jumped over the fence in his pajamas and was going to hide in a car near the United States Embassy, specifically in the embassy's parking lot. We should note that the U.S. Embassy was close to his residence. So, he hides there and tells his loved ones to stay hidden in the house. And when the soldiers arrive, the rebel soldiers come, they will shoot at his apple because, from sources I have, they will shoot at it even if it survives. They will shoot into a closet fearing he is there, but they won't be able to get their hands on him. Specifically, before they even reach SYLVANUS Olympio's place, all the ministers have been arrested and imprisoned. Only 2 managed to flee to Benin. Thus, the coup would hold no value if the president himself had not been captured. As time passes, he fails to capture the president and begins to worry greatly. So SYLVANUS Olympio will take cover there. The embassy guard will spot this. He will call his boss, the US ambassador, who will be present, informed. At the same time, the French ambassador will call the US ambassador to tell him that a coup is being plotted in the country, aiming to assassinate the president. So that's it. After two colleagues inquire about the situation in the country, they find no issues whatsoever. Thus, the US ambassador will show up at about 3 a.m. He will find SYLVANUS OLYMPIO and say, "Stay concealed, I'll grab the embassy key for you to get inside." However, at the same time, they encounter the rebel forces. I want to specify that all I'm saying now, these are statements that were brought to light by SYLVANUS OLYMPIO's children to the US ambassador several years later. So you can judge for yourself and comment on what you think. So, in particular, he will encounter those notorious soldiers who will state that these soldiers were inebriated, they were under the influence of drugs. Let's say provoked, and thus he felt threatened. He refused to open the embassy, fearing that pranksters would come and smash or ruin items. So, to ask for advice, he will call the French ambassador back then, to tell him that, well, I am in a situation, I was informed that a coup was brewing, well, it's happening right in my area because President SYLVANUS OLYMPIO came to see me. I told him to stay hidden in the car, the pranksters are here, and then he hangs up. And curiously, a few moments later, the soldiers looking for SYLVANUS OLYMPIO in the night, for almost hours on end, will grab him easily. They will seize him, they will kill him, they will execute him up close, at that moment. Naturally, you might wonder, what makes you curious? Who these notorious soldiers were. Do we have names? Who was behind this? That's what I will tell you shortly.
And I was present last Wednesday to visit the president.
So 4 days before he died.
4 days before his death, Commander Dejo saw him.
He is there. What did you tell him?
We brought him up to speed that the situation would collapse, and that the ex-military were discontent, and that a solution was necessary.
To reinstate them in the Togolese army.
To reintegrate them, not just into the Togolese army. These soldiers do not ask to earn what France used to pay them. They only want to find jobs, either option, in the forests, in the gendarmerie, or in the police.
Will be work, simply put.
To get jobs at some time.
4 days later, at dawn on this Sunday, January 13th, the veterans were advocating for power.
So if you remember earlier, I told you there were soldiers who had returned from the front, under the banner of the French colonial forces, and these soldiers were unable to be reinstated in the French army. Among these soldiers, there were two men, Emmanuel Beaujolais, 7 years old, and Niasegbe Eyadema, 28 years old. You might not recognize Emmanuel Beaujolais, but Niasegbe Eyadema is a name you definitely know. These two were truly at the head of this rebellion, or this faction. And Niasegbe Eyadema would later claim several times that he himself assassinated President SYLVANUS OLYMPIO, even though he would deny it a few years later, but he would assert himself that he killed his own mother, SYLVANUS OLYMPIO. And so, one naturally questions what France's interest was in supporting this faction to murder SYLVANUS OLYMPIO. I'll explain. In the same year that SYLVANUS OLYMPIO resisted the reintegration of soldiers into his forces, he expressed the desire to leave the French zone. He wanted to create his own currency. He wanted to have unity at the African continent level in his own way. And thus, this genuinely alarmed France. France, which did not view him as a threat, suddenly recognized he was as threatening as his tailors, if not more so, so he had to be taken out at any cost. If you have any knowledge about the history of Africa, you might recall Gaddafi, a president who had similar beliefs and aspirations for a unified currency and African unity. And if you also remember, he was killed. Anyway, SYLVANUS OLYMPIO gained many enemies, notably President Kwame Nkrumah, who was said to have interfered in that coup, since I told you some elected officials left for Ghana, while others remained in Togo. So, when SYLVANUS OLYMPIO rose to power, he wanted to keep the people united. He aimed for the reunification of the Hehe, and of course, Nkrumah viewed this very unfavorably, leading to friction between the two. But these are speculations. I cannot confirm that. What is certain is that Niasse Ndaye Adema and Emmanuel Bodele were the instigators of the assassination of Kwame Nkrumah, and behind all this, they had the support of the great and powerful France. Anyway, after he died, Nicolas Kreniski, France's key pawn, became president. But an incompetent is still an incompetent. He couldn't lead, and the people revolted. After a few years, 4 years to be exact, Niasse Ndaye Adema staged a coup. He didn't kill him but let him leave the country, and then he became president. You know the rest. He spent nearly 30 to 40 years at the helm of the country before his death. So here's a bit of this man's story, who was not perfect, far from it, SYLVANUS OLYMPIO, but he had ambitious plans for his nation. However, because he stood against the great and powerful colonial power that I will not name here, they equipped individuals to carry out his assassination. And the history of Africa shows that many presidents tried to oppose this colonial power, and they were assassinated. I trust that you had a pleasant time watching this video. Please don't hesitate to subscribe, like, share, and follow me on TikTok and YouTube if you'd like. Take care and enjoy.
Master of your destiny, dear Togo, my dear country, you are free at last. On behalf of the Togolese people, I formally propose Togo's independence, our homeland.